And we are back with our tenets of white supremacy. As I say that, I'm like, that doesn't sound like a good time, but we find a way, right? The next tenet we're going to discuss here is quantity over quality. With this one, we talk about that a lot. I feel like in regular life, like this one isn't a surprise to a lot of people. Like, and we say things like, "I go for quality over quantity" with friends and stuff. But as a value system, as a core belief, there is an element of us that does believe that quantity. So it's not that quantity is simple as quantity is more valuable than quality, but as a source of information, we believe that anything that can be quantified is more valuable than the things that cannot be quantified. So just we are more likely to value the statistical information, anything that has these measurable numbers, right? And we think that information is more helpful to us in whatever our end goal is in whatever the thing. Okay. We think that objectivity, I'm going to actually put air quotes around that. Objectivity is better than subjectivity. To know something, quote unquote, factually has more value to us than things you could never know factually. Quote. You see that in STEM, right? This field, and there's been a conversation around it being more STEAM, throwing an A in there, because I don't know what the letters stand for, but it's all mathy things, science and technology, engineering, mathematics, probably STEM, and then they want to put in art. And I saw conversations that a lot of, especially younger people, come on. We obviously, these sciences are much harder. It's not the same as art. Like, they don't belong together in this kind of indignant way. Like, when you are in these number fields, that is distinctly, quote unquote, harder and therefore more valuable and exclusive than if you understand art and art history. I think there have been really interesting conversations around that on TikTok, because art has such a part to play. And I'll say this, you know, gearing ourselves towards the numbers feeds into that sense of safety we get around what we believe to be is certainty, and control. And if we have this information, then we can make better decisions, right? With all these numbers, because then that's going to be more guaranteed and more correct. But we conveniently ignore where the numbers came from and why we are talking about those numbers. Because all of that has to do with humans and their subjective irrationality. Yeah, that's why economics often doesn't make sense, because they go based on human rationality and then they predict everything wrong because humans aren't rational. Humans are humans. No matter how much they try to make us beings that just do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then we just do that for all of time, we refuse, because guess what? We're humans. So we're ignoring one, who was involved in the statistics, meaning who said we should know this number? Then how do we find this number? Who did they work with to understand this number? And why are they talking about it now? Because oftentimes it's for confirmation. It's to prove something to someone, as in, like, it's factual. As in, when you give this number in relation to the subject, we are now done. That is gonna trump, oh my God, he ruined the word, any other conversation you can have. Whether you say, like, the kids had a happier life. They're like, well, 7. Sorry. Oh, God. Okay, sorry. Oh my God, I'm turning into my mother, making myself laugh. Um, so it's also thinking about like what numbers do you care about? What numbers do you bring up and why? Because the why is all in the subjectivity. The why, the how. Like you can't just ignore those because you have numbers. And when I said it feeds into our sense of safety, we love to ruminate and analyze if we can to come up with the right answer and never make the decision because we're just ruminating. And maybe it'll just solve itself while we come up with all the numbers to tell us what to do. I mean, it hasn't happened yet, but we'd rather spin our wheels and say we're working on it when if we think that if we don't have those numbers, we may make a wrong decision and regret the decision we made, meaning we were wrong, right? So certain sounding numbers make us feel safer in that moment that we are less likely to be wrong. Also, it externalizes the decision. It's not you that decided, it's, well, I have to. The numbers tell me. We have to, do this horrible thing to this big group of people. The numbers say it's in the better interest of the something. Profit share, market shareholders. Okay? Instead, especially when we think that there's so much of us involved in the decisions we make, and they're not just decisions we made with the information we had. It's like, well, how much information do you have? More? Okay, more. But in terms of actual value, like sometimes the numbers have a point. Sometimes the numbers have reasons, and sure, they help. I'm not saying all numbers are bad. But at some point, eventually, the numbers are just numbers, you know? They're just more numbers. And then they contradict other numbers. And then you're just talking about the numbers. You're not actually doing anything. You're just theorizing and intellectualizing things that could happen and should and may based on things that did happen. Oi. Well, none of that is doing anything. You know, if you are talking about these numbers out of a place of trying to reinforce your confidence and confirm stuff, don't do that. I would say have some gumption about you and just make your choices based on the information you have and move forward. Or don't. I mean, it's up to you. Depends, obviously, right? But personally, I am working on if something being countable is not a value I hold. Just being able to count it should not be a value, right? We shouldn't be like, well, it has numbers, so I think about that more. When we are human beings, numbers have nothing to do with our makeup. Like, we can use them, they are a tool, but it is not the determinant. It doesn't say what's right or wrong or what should happen or should have happened. We cannot externalize those things. It's within us. It's in our genes. It's in our folklore. It's in our personalities, right? You can't count that, and it isn't less valuable because you can't count it. I would argue the opposite, but I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to argue white supremacy tenets, right? The core beliefs. Like, it dehumanizes our literal values. They were like, yeah, all that stuff, but 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, let's do those again. It turns our lives into output, like on a spreadsheet. Ooh, gross. But of course, because trying to measure quality and include quality in your understanding of anything is super inconvenient. Gosh, it's so complex. Like every person has their own thoughts and feelings, and what it gets in the way of trying to see things clearly. What are you trying to see? If you want to ignore that huge complex thing that is involved in it, you want to pull out the numbers, but they don't exist outside of the human developing them as much as we want to do that. the intangible and complex is like, bleh, who wants that? We can't control that. That doesn't make me feel safe. Systems make sense because the system will do this thing and I can count on it, especially if it works in my favor. That doesn't work well with like the irrationality of human beings, and every single human that exists has their own level of irrational. Come on. And with this conversation and in white supremacist culture, there is an inherent discomfort with emotions and feelings. They are uncomfortable with other people's emotions and feelings, and they think they are superior because they don't consider them, because they're not saying they don't have them, but like they do not have, they're proud of not expressing them. That seems weak to me. That seems like the weaker of the choices. That seems like you went for the easy. Oh, emotions and feelings are complex. I don't know. That makes me uncomfortable. And we're weaker for having those things. You can't even deal with them or like look at them, but we should listen to you about where they hold value and don't hold value. Okay, yeah, sure. But our feelings can't be commodified. Well, now with the attention economy, things are getting a little bit different, and quality is starting to be commodified a bit, but late stage capitalism will do that. But no matter what, our emotions and what we care about are based in our personal experiences. And that can't be put on a spreadsheet. But they matter. It matters. It has everything to do with how we're living. If the complexity of humanity is in the way of your achievements and accomplishments, what are you achieving and accomplishing exactly? Is it something we want valuable? Is it actually? Zoom out. You might be, spinning your wheels a little bit. And so we end up in this world where like these stockbrokers, I just imagine like in the 80s, I guess, and 90s, and the stockbrokers with two phones, one in each ear, and yelling and screaming and numbers. And like these guys are the top of the top because they talk about numbers all the time. Do they matter or mean anything? Are they true? Are they correct? Did they all fail? Maybe, but they sound smart. Having gone to business school, it all sounds so different to me now. So it doesn't sound as smart as it used to sound to me. But I'm not going to speak for other people. But in organizations now, all of the resources are really geared toward quantifiable goals. There isn't value put on things that are not quantifiable because those are the numbers that go right up, and that's something easy for the men in charge to look at and talk about, I guess, is more the thing. They'd rather see, when you value these things, you'd rather see like the number of people attending a meeting, the how many people got the newsletter, how much money was spent, how often is it being spent. If you think about, like, those are things we can talk about and yell about. But if you're talking about the quality of relationships, and dealing with conflict and how are we managing and what is the actual morale, which, I don't know how they do that now. That would all be, you can't argue that. You can't yell at people about that. And you can't then compare it to the numbers from a month ago or 2 months ago. That's not as fun. I want to yell about stuff. Reports, graphs, make it easy for me. Goodness gracious, the more I think about it. When you do that, the other problem is you attach value to everything but the process that is happening, right? You just see what's happening at the end of the day. What are the numbers? There's gonna be a little siren. because it's very important what I'm talking about. So, maybe they'll care about the process in terms of speed, how fast it was done. We do it in this many days, but that's not talking about the quality. Like, does it break? Did you do it well? That's not important. Look at how few days we took. But you can't ignore, it doesn't work like that. You can't ignore the human component. So when it comes down to it, if there is a conflict between what is happening and how it is happening, or how this article states, between content, for example, the agenda of a meeting, and process, people's need to be heard or engaged, right? So in this, we're talking about how white supremacy shows up in organizations. They talk about the process being, how do people get things done? Meaning, like, how do they feel when they get things done? How are they able to? We're not even discussing that. But no matter what, if there's a conflict between the two, the process will prevail. Because like I said, if they can't get it done, then the content's not going to show up. Yeah, this would be great to have, but if you can't get it for some reasons that you don't want to hear about, because it involves humans and the process that it has to go between the humans, and you don't want to hear about that, you just want to see the results, you're not going to get the results you want. You're just going to get numbers. And then those numbers are not going to look great. The process isn't going to improve. So for the example here, saying, the agenda of the meeting versus people's need to be heard or engaged. So you may get through the agenda technically, but if you haven't paid attention to people's need to be heard, the decisions made at the meeting are undermined and or disregarded. So you got all that content done. Will it come to fruition when you ignore the other half of the process? Probably more than half of the process, of completion. No. So, right or wrong, in order to get what you're looking for, you need to include quality and subjectivity in your analysis. In the analysis. And that is difficult, as it should be, because we're humans. We are not meant to be on a spreadsheet. We are not meant to be analyzed in that manner and used and commodified. So, I definitely believe to an extent that these jobs that have numbers involved are more impressive. And I think they are, for some people, more impressive. Should they be? I don't think so. What are you doing? You work for a finance company, and that's now who you are, and you do finance, and it's really hard. What? Okay. What's your impact? Oh, the billionaire still a billionaire. Oh, okay. Well, that's countable. So, cool. I make content first for the internet. I guess there are countable things in there, but with what I'm talking about, I value the quality over the quantity. And it's a big reason I am removing myself from TikTok now that, I can make that connection, is because I was valuing, even though I could not help it, it's in our nature or how we've been conditioned, looking at all these numbers. There were so many numbers to look at. The number of followers, the number of likes, the number of views, the number of views on the video, likes, comments. Oh my gosh, so many numbers to evaluate yourself on. But what kind of experience was I having? Not great. Not great. How much emotional control did I have? Not a lot. Nope. I value what I do now so much more than I valued my numbers job that I got after my numbers school. I feel so much better about myself that I can actually be inside my day and feel that I have an impact on the quality of my day. I don't know what the numbers of my days are. but I know they feel much better. And I think I choose this. It's strange, that feeling that getting the countable job and getting the numbers and the dollars and the safety through the numbers and the dollars, and then not actually having that or feeling that, you kind of left with like, oh man, maybe I should have just gone for quality this whole time. Maybe I was okay with the things I liked before. And I didn't have to pretend I enjoyed this numbers. I did not. I'm a people person. I'm more of an in-person person, actually. I'm an in-person person, not really a people person, because, gosh. But maybe that's because I've turned people into numbers because I was on TikTok for 3 years. Who knows? Maybe I'll change my mind about that. I've changed my mind about so many things recently. So who knows? But right now, that's what I think. I care about people more than I care about numbers, which shouldn't be a profound statement, but it is not what I was taught, I don't think, or conditioned to believe, because not taught. Like, I don't think anybody told me that, but it's the messaging we're constantly getting. What are you going to college for? Quality things? Get out of here. You dummy. Who goes to college for art things, even though they have it, and you want to learn that stuff? What do you down? You can get a real job, one that has numbers in it. Okay. Ooh, man. Every time I do one of these, I'm just like, man, that really got me. They really had me out here valuing things I did not value. We are manipulatable. And but we are also changeable and ungaslightable. All right, that's enough. This has been awesome. Let me know what you think about this so far. I'm going to keep doing them no matter what, because this is a pleasant experience. And I hope you enjoy it as well. So until next time.